Today we're getting under the hood with Kelly Capponi, a mother, daughter, sister, caregiver, women's advocate, and artist. Kelly lives in Pennsylvania with her husband, daughter, and cat, filling her life and house with all the colors in the rainbow. She has worked in the background screening industry for nearly 2 decades, but after losing her mom to cancer in 2021, decided to take a step down from her high-pressure role as Vice President of Operations to focus more on her mental health. This shifting in priorities allowed Kelly to gain perspective, to hone in on what really mattered, her mental and emotional well-being and her family. The introspection allowed by this break also led Kelly to truly see that her gravitation toward coloring and painting was something that brought her real peace and ease. Over the last few years, while also re-entering the workforce, she has used art and color to help process her emotional journey, and the result has been the colorful canvas art pieces that Kelly creates. Her hope is that they can also help others find joy in the colors around them in the world. Wow, welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's great to be here.
Oh, I'm so delighted to be getting under the hood with you today. It's season 4, Women's March for Mental Wellness, and I just love your story. So if it's okay, can we get going?
Absolutely.
Awesome. I love this question. I've been asking everyone it, but I think it's really interesting to hear the answers. And, we all have inflection points in life. What was your inflection point that got you on to the health and wellness journey?
So more recently, it was with the passing of my mom, but I've been focusing on my mental health for what feels like a long time now. With my high pressure job, I really saw the importance of it as it started to affect my home life. So then when my mom passed away, I really needed to refocus. I started to see honestly what really mattered, how I could take care of myself. I started painting. If you see my house, there is coloring books everywhere. I have like every art supply you can imagine. And I just sat down one day and just started to put that paint on the canvas. My focus like instantly changed. All my emotions, all my feelings, I just got out on that canvas. And I'm like gonna cry because it makes me emotional. Don't get me wrong, going back and forth from the hospital, I would scream in the car. I was angry. I felt all the emotions, but just being able to put that on that canvas was just a totally different feeling. And what came from it was more for me, but then I started to share it with other people and it really sparked something in them. And that made me feel amazing.
I love that. And it's interesting how grieving the whole process that one goes through. I mean, you as the caregiver, and I know we'll talk more about how you caregive for your family, the whole entire family, in a short while. But I want to get into the notion of art for healing and what that did for you. You probably didn't go into it knowing, but the result was. So can you talk a little bit about that journey?
Honestly, it felt amazing. Coloring was something my mom and I did from a very young age, where, we'd go to the food store, the dollar store, wherever, and we were always picking up coloring books. We'd sit at the kitchen table and we would just color. It just felt natural to kind of go back to that during my grieving process. Yeah, and it just felt natural to just sit down and just put it on that canvas. You can use every color and it depicts how you're feeling. Mine, mostly are bright colors, because I don't want to always feel that sadness. That was kind of through that whole process, but just getting it out there.
And so you've been doing it for a few years. So you've found the canvas, you found your colors, you found your purpose in doing that. It would be great to understand, like, how is it manifesting outside of your home?
Again, I think it just like brings joy. I mean, my house is full of colors.
So you started doing it, but then you put it out in the world. Where did you go and what are you doing with that?
Sure. So my husband has been my number one supporter from the beginning. He was like, this is beautiful. Like, you should share it. And I was like, I don't think so. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I have no training. Like, I never went to art school. Again, it was just something that I did for myself. So my husband started to share it with some of our friends. And they were like, wow, this is really good. And then my friends, I would give them as gifts for birthdays or holidays. And then some of my other friends were like, can you do specific colors? And I was like, yeah, sure. And like, so many of them have them in their homes. Anybody and everybody can see them. I met this person when my husband and I were on a date, and they were like, my husband shared it with them because they did tie dyeing. And he was like, wow, like I'd like to carry some of these in my shop. Went from there. Like I just needed that first person outside of my group that was like, these are really good. We have a local shop here who carries a few of them. I have a bookshop, another local spot that has them up for the month of June for Pride, because of all the colors and rainbows. And then I just started getting into like festivals, different art festivals. Again, like it's only been like the last year that I've really been doing this, but they found their home. It is when that person comes up, like I'm getting goosebumps right now just talking about it. But when that person comes up and like you just see how they connect with it, it was like just makes it all worth it. Honestly, to make money, I just want to bring a smile to somebody's face. That's it. Like I love creating them and all the different ones. And I've since branched out to different shapes and stuff. Like I started with circles because I was like, circles are awesome. I've never seen circle canvases. And then just kind of where my mind just has, gone. And it's just been an incredible journey.
The reception you got in the process, it organically unfolded. And
Yeah.
your point of like, you get so much joy out of doing it, but you bring joy to other people by giving it. Let's talk about colors. In your bio, we talk about like colors of the rainbow. So what inspired that?
Anything bright, just it gives me that like visceral response where it just puts a smile on my face. So just having that, and like I said, my house, like I have colors everywhere. And again, it's a lot of it is for my mental health. It just goes back to that. There are times where I'm not, happy and I don't want to get out of bed, but then I like, look, I have a wall outside my bathroom that is just full of prints from artists all over that have positive affirmations on there. So I've just kind of tried to cultivate that positive atmosphere.
There's a whole science behind colors and positive, the psychology behind, how it manifests joy and happiness and abundance and all those different things. And so I think it's not surprising that you're getting that it has that effect on you. So talk about the journey as you've been, and then I want to get into the caregiving aspect of your life. But I think the journey you've been on with the mental health and how art has been your therapy.
Absolutely. I've been in therapy for years and I love it. I've had different therapists. I've journaled, I've meditated, I've done all different things. And I find comfort in different ways, but I always kind of go back to that art. You'll see my art table's not very big, but when my mental health is, I don't want to say struggling because it's not always when it's something bad. It could be when it's something good, is just full of pieces in progress. And it just kind of helps me get it out. And I'm dealing, like you said, dealing with the loss of my mom, changing careers after most of my life, kind of trying to refocus and figuring out a way to help that. I try to get outside and go for walks because like you said, like caregiving, like I am my grandmom's caregiver and have been for like the last 6 years, and that's been a lot. I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world. And I'm super grateful to have support, from my husband, my brother, my daughter, but it takes a toll because, I have a family, I have a full-time job, and I also have to take care of her. She's wonderful. We're kind of transitioning to, the different stage in her life and kind of figuring all that out. Therapy and, working on my mental health, I need these. I need to take care of myself. And that is one thing that my one therapist told me years ago. And we talk about it in this house. We all use it, is making sure your batteries are charged. Because if your batteries aren't charged, then you are no use to yourself and to anybody around you. You need to take care of yourself first, and how important that is. And I wasn't always the case, but once I really started focusing on myself and my mental health, I can do these things. They're not always easy, I'm able to do it and take up, take that space and take that time, but also take that time for myself.
First of all, I admire you. You were the caregiver for your mother and for your grandmother. That is a lot. That is a lot. It takes women with these big, broad shoulders. And do you know that 8 out of 10 caregivers are women? So the burden's tremendous. And you're right. To be able to do it, you have to feel grateful. What I think is interesting is the way you happened upon that you go back in your grieving process with your mom to doing the things you used to do with your mom. And now you've made it something so much bigger. And so, congratulations on that. That's like huge. And it's wonderful because it gives you joy. Can you tell everybody what your Instagram handle is?
Sure, absolutely. It's at KC Kaleidoscope because they reminded me of like the old school toy, the kaleidoscope, and obviously my initials, how I identify as and who, I just find the most accepting. I have goosebumps, just like welcoming and it's just a good feeling. I don't know where I see myself. I'm trying to just remind myself why I do it. My daughter and I will sit at the table. Like that is also something, like I said, my mom and I used to do it, and now I've been doing it with my daughter for all these years. Like we'll sit, we'll color, we'll paint. And now she's at that age though, where she's like, trying to copy mine. She's 10, trying to copy what I do. And I'm like, sweetheart, you do you. Like what you're creating is amazing, but just trying
Oh,
to keep that positivity, like put it out there. Like obviously, she's going through different feelings and, learning all this stuff. And I'm like, you can put it on canvas, you can put it on whatever. And it's just amazing. And it's something I love doing. It's like our Saturday or Sunday weekend ritual. I say self-care, and like we just do it. We put all the art supplies on the table and we just do it. And my husband will join us sometimes, and it's just amazing. I don't know where this journey is going to take me. I love seeing it in, places, and hopefully that will continue, like different, bookshops, coffee shops, what have you. I just want to bring that joy to somebody else.
I just love the fact that you're doing it with your daughter for multiple reasons. She's honing these skills. She'll get good at something that brings joy to others, but brings her joy. And so I want to step into that. You made a comment about you go into the local festivals, you go into pride festivals, you see your people, that's where you identify. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I think your artwork speaks to that.
Absolutely. So I identify as pansexual, which is, something wasn't sure about. I always kind of knew I didn't fit into that stereotypical mold. And really, as it was honestly over these last few years after losing my mom, have I really kind of figured out who I was. Like I said, I always knew I was different, but, kind of just seeing where this journey takes me, it happens to be where it's kind of always been. So I used to volunteer at an agency down in the city, and I would always do the Pride festivals, volunteer at that and stuff. And then and now like coming back to that is been amazing. So yeah, it's kind of just been like a wild journey of self-reflection. I don't even know, just figuring out. Yes,
Acceptance, maybe?
acceptance.
So that must have been the most amazing feeling to have found your people like that. That sort of, in a lot of ways, I would imagine the healing in that. How's that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is just such a wonderful feeling. Like it really is, just to be like, huh, that's what like, and it's just been fantastic, you know?
Self-discovery is an amazing thing. And it's so interesting how it's like we have to have these inflection moments. You're grieving your mom, giving you that ability to almost like let go, take
Yes.
that monkey off the back, that the weights we carry. And sometimes we don't even think about that we're carrying it until something happens. And there's that moment where you can pivot your life, transition, reinvent self. So I'm curious, like in this whole process, how do you feel you're marching for mental wellness?
Oh, I feel like I'm doing it every day, honestly, just between my self-care and figuring out and like what is important, setting boundaries, learning to say no. That was something I struggled with. As you mentioned, a caregiver, most of my family would always come to me and be like, well, Kelly's just going to do it. don't worry, she's got it. And like just kind of stopping and reflecting on that. And it's like, but why? Before I would jump into that role and I'm like, no, no, I can't do it. Or if I have to, there will be a time that I say it's going to happen. But again, that took a long time to get there. I want people to know that it's possible. You don't have to be stuck. I felt like I was stuck for almost like 20 years. Felt like that. And then like you said, when my mom passed, it shifted something in my brain where it's like, what am I doing? Like I needed to sit and kind of figure out what was important to me. What did I need? What did my mental health need, to move forward? And a lot of that was taking time off from work. I need to be by water. That is one thing my family knows about me. Like when I need to kind of reset, like I just need to be by the ocean. That brings me joy, putting that shell in my pocket, finding that. So kind of revisiting that and seeing like, okay, this is a different feeling. How do I hold on to that? Oh, and that just kind of it's just how I live my life. And I'm trying to teach my daughter that too. And I will say the one thing that just made me feel like I'm doing something right on my Mother's Day gift, one of the things she wrote was, my mom takes care of me, but she also takes care of herself. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
I know. Oh
So
my goodness.
sweet.
But like she could recognize that already.
But I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I applaud you for creating that space, setting those boundaries. You got to keep that up. And what you just said about your daughter is, as mothers, we are role models. I can relate to having an inflection point. My father died, and I wholesale changed my life. And to find out what's it all about, Alfie, what really matters. The things you're teaching your daughter, the things you're role modeling, when you show up as your best self, when you accept yourself and love yourself, you're giving her permission to like start at a young age doing that. If we can teach our daughters to feel that self-love, that self-acceptance, because we're mirroring that behavior, we're doing really good work there.
Absolutely. And being able to say no. Like even just like the smallest things, like, no, I don't want to go there, or no, I don't want to do that. And not be like, well, you have to. It's like, okay, I respect that. Obviously, some different circumstances, but just being able to recognize, what you're comfortable with and not just, what's the word, making other people feel better. Yeah, it's just been a wild journey.
And I think you made the comment, you didn't use these words, but it's like wanting to please everybody, taking it on. I can relate to that. This is about a time and it's your time. You've got an agency and your agency of your life and what matters to you and how you choose to live. And the self-expression is really finding your voice and expressing yourself. It's the way you show up, and it could be the way you paint, the color, the way you, whatever it may be, and your voice. But I think it's interesting because everything you've said today has been watching you on your journey. And then, of course, you're already in community, but continuing to build out community. I think that's really interesting. So I'm curious, as we embark on this conversation, is there anything else you want to share about the work you're doing? I don't know if I missed anything that you'd like to share with the audience.
It's really just for anybody listening, like just create. Do what makes you feel good. Do what brings you joy. I never really thought I would get to this point. Like I said, I would color in coloring books. Oh, and then like one day I started painting, in a notebook or something. I kind of always just doodled. But it's really just finding that piece, whatever it may be, that brings you that little bit of joy to kind of keep going.
I think it's amazing. And you described a little bit a while ago in the conversation is you don't know where the journey's going to take you. But isn't that the fun part? I think women and raising families, we have to have a modicum amount of control. But when you let go of that and you let things unfold, right?
For me, like imposter syndrome is real. Like I said, it's still like I still struggle with it. It's a journey. So wherever it goes, I'm ready to go with it. Kind of still just enjoying these moments, where, like I said, I see it in a shop window. I see it in my friend's bathroom or living room. Like it's awesome.
I don't think it matters if you go to art school or not art school. If you have talent and you start to put it down in some capacity, in some sort of medium, and you keep going. I'm a big believer in the metaphor of planting seeds and then continuing and then watering and weeding. And so imagine the seeds are your canvases, it's your art form, your medium, and you just keep building out and things just keep happening. And so I don't think you have to go to art school to get there. Art school might be enabler of it for some people who are whatever, but then, you show up at some point in your life, something happens, and suddenly the artist in you is suddenly unleashed. And so I would believe wholeheartedly and lose the imposter syndrome and just derive so much joy from it, and it'll manifest.
Yeah, no, I like what you said, unleashed. Like, I'm just like, Kelly Capponi is unleashed.
I talk to so many women. There's a lot of conversations around this imposter syndrome. And I'm like, why do you have that? Like, what is it? I mean, we all have our insecurities, but the imposter syndrome bothers me. Women seem to take that on. Men have no problem being average as can be, and they're not feeling like they're imposters, but they kind of are, and they just
Yeah.
just slide through life and they don't feel it. But women take this on. But I just love what you're doing. I applaud you for using art to heal and using art now as a source to bring other people joy, to give yourself joy. So I'm curious, this is your platform to give women a message, women of all ages, of all backgrounds, and all cultures. What do you want to leave them with, Kelly?
To take care of yourself. I think that is something that we don't do enough of. We're too busy trying to take care of, and I speak from experience, everyone else around us. But why? We are just as important as women, and we deserve that love. And we do whatever you see you need to do to take care of yourself. Going on walks, reading a book, taking that 5 minutes for yourself and not feeling guilty, setting boundaries, saying no. Stuff can wait. Like, that is something, I work from home, so learning to be like, I don't need to do the dishes right now. It will get done. But again, it was like shifting my mindset. I'd rather sit on the couch and watch TV. I'd rather sit outside and read a book, and it's okay. And I'm telling every woman listening, it's okay. You deserve that time. You deserve to take care of you and not feel guilty. You are loved, you are seen, and yes, you deserve it all.
I love giving permission to women to take care of self.
Yes.
That's just brilliant, Kelly. Thank you so much for getting under the hood with me. I applaud all the work you're doing on self and how you're bringing your beautiful art form and your healing out into the world and bringing joy. Congratulations.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. This was an awesome experience. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Under the Sisterhood. If you haven't already, please give us a quick rating and review on Apple or Spotify. And make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn so you can hear from more amazing women. This podcast is created and hosted by Under the Sisterhood LLC and Elizabeth Elfenbein, produced by Elizabeth Elfenbein and Matt Butler, and edited by Matt Butler. The music is by Ayla Schaefer. Her song, Rose.